What's for dinner with the Joyful Priest? Tonight, it's caramelized onion and butternut squash bisque. I'm going to show you how to make it in just a second. Stay tuned. So we're going to do the prep work first. You're going to need at least 6 Vidalia onions. I double the recipe. You'll need a really good sized butternut squash. If you go to Aldi, they're usually all the same size, so you can do that there. You're going to need some shallots, some Italian seasoning is what I use, some apple cider vinegar, some oil. You're going to need to use some, what else do I need to, do I have? Oh, heavy cream, don't forget that. And you're going to need 7 cups of low sodium chicken broth. I use the bouillon out of the jar, and you're going to see that when we get to it. So, what do you say? Let's start prepping. So you peel the butternut squash. I use a potato peeler so you can get that skin off. It's really actually pretty easy to do. Now you cut it in half after you've peeled it, and then you get the seeds out. I take a spoon and scrape them out. You can see I get it all over the place too. I'll pick those up later. But anyway, so that's the next step. So the recipe calls for you to cube the butternut squash, and my knife is a little bit dull here, so don't pay attention to that. But so you cube the squash and you boil it, and or you saute it. Now I'll show you when that happens. So I know the recipe says to cube it, but you know, eventually you're going to be putting an immersible blender in there. So I just use my small food processor and I grind up the butternut squash in these little tiny bits, and that's going to make it so much easier on the immersible blender later on in the recipe. So again, the directions, the recipe says that you should dice these onions. Well, you're just going to be putting them in that immersible blender. So I just, once again, put them in my handy single person's food processor, and I just make them really tiny. This will help you in the end. So to make the chicken broth, I'm going to use this bouillon in a jar, and there's 4 cups here, but we're going to have to double. We're doubling this recipe, so in the end we're going to do this twice, and so we're going to make sure that we have, it's 1 teaspoon of the bouillon to 1 cup of water. And so in the end, we'll have 7 cups of this for this recipe. But what we're going to do then is I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it in the microwave, and we're going to make that until it's hot. Now, the recipe calls for vegetable oil, but I never use vegetable oil. I always use olive oil. And you know, all of these things that I'm showing you, except for the heavy whipping cream, which is right here. You need to get 2 cups of that. You can find it at Aldi, which is where I like to go shopping. We've got all the ingredients that we need to make this caramelized onion and squash bisque. We've got the Italian seasoning I'm going to use. We've got the apple cider vinegar. We've got the butternut squash that I have cubed and then food processed. We've got the heavy whipping cream, the bouillon. We're going to make another batch of this while this is cooking. We've got the oil started already with some onions, but we got to get the rest of those onions in there, and we will. We're going to get those onions in there right now. There you go. So we got those onions in there, and we're going to cook these for 5 minutes, and then what we'll do is that we'll turn the heat down to medium, and then we'll cook them for 20 minutes until they've caramelized. After they've caramelized, we're going to take the apple cider vinegar and we're going to deglaze the bottom of the pan. Okay, so now that we've had this on here for 5 minutes, we're going to turn it down. My stove runs a little hot, so I'm going to go less than medium, and then we're going to stir it up a little bit. You can see, I don't know if you can even see the onions. And then, there we go. Stir it up a little bit. There you go. And then we're going to put a lid on this. Just a second. And we're going to let it set there for 20 minutes. We are going to stir it every so often. Okay, so the timer went off, and so what we're going to do is, I hope you can see in the bottom of here, you can see where, where'd my spoon go? Here we go. You can see where it's cooked a little bit on the bottom of the pan. You can see that right there, right? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take the apple cider vinegar right now, and we're going to use that to take that caramelizing off of the bottom of the pan, because that actually is going to add color and it's going to add flavor to, yeah, my wooden spoon isn't cutting it, so we'll go with my metal spatula here. So anyway, so we're going to get this caramelized off of here. Now, since we did all the prep work ahead of time, we're going to take this squash and we're going to put it in with the onions that have been caramelized, and then we've deglazed the bottom of the pan with the apple cider vinegar, and you can smell those flavors. Now, here's something that I do in my cooking. I like to put the spices in with the ingredients rather than later on, so that they get attached to the ingredients. I don't even know if that's really something, but I prefer to do it that way. So I took the Italian seasoning and I put that in there. All right, can you see this now? So now, since we've doubled the recipe, what we're going to do is we're going to take the bouillon, which we've made into chicken broth, basically. And I'm going to stir this up. It's been sitting for a little while. So we're going to put those all in there. And we're going to bring it to a simmer. And then we're going to let it cook for about 20 minutes. So I had to turn the dishwasher on, so I'm sorry for the noise. But as you can see, there's a little bit too much heat with this, with the squash. So I'm going to turn the heat off while we do this. But this is your standard immersible blender. And this is my favorite part. And we're going to go and just grind everything up in here. And we're going to puree it. We're going to make it nice and smooth. And when I get to that point, we'll be back. Okay, so the recipe calls for this to be served just hot. What does that mean? So I've allowed some time to elapse so that the heat could rise out of the soup, out of the bisque. So now is the part that I've been waiting for, which is that we take the cream and the immersible blender and we pour the cream into the bisque, and then we begin to mix it all up. Oh, I can smell it. It's going to be so good. We'll see in a minute. So here we are. This is the onion and butternut squash bisque. I have some confessions to make. You should get shallots, but I didn't have shallots today, so I'm using just the onions. And then as a garnish, I'm going to use this Asiago. Oh, by the way, I put some parsley in the middle to make it look fancy. And then I'm going to use some Asiago cheese to garnish this. Also, you can see that I have water, and I've got a water bottle to refresh. Always drink water. Please keep hydrated. These bottles can be found at IKEA for a song. You can season to taste with salt and pepper. And I've got my beverage. And let me pour a little bit more in here. And so this is my onion and butternut squash bisque. Buen provecho. Oh my gosh, this is so yummy. Oh, if they only knew.